Hi everybody, Dave Howard coming to you live from the compounds of Premier Risk Management here in Phoenix, Arizona, the beautiful state of Arizona. Hey, today we're doing another segment in a series of educational information we're providing for everybody on our YouTube channel. And I've asked Dave Brinson to join us today. Dave's come alongside of our team here recently, and we brought Dave alongside of our team because he has a unique skill set that we needed, and none of us are experts at, but he is. So one of the things that Dave specializes in is the security and safety of facilities and actually your team members. So today we're going to start this by, I'm just going to ask Dave a few questions, and then he's going to give us some answers, and I think you're going to find this very intriguing. So Dave, we talk about all the time, and you hear it, all you do is watch the news or get online and look up information, and you see stories about, we'll call them ill-tempered employees that may not react well to a termination or something behavioral that happened in the workplace, or maybe they're just having a bad time at home, we don't know.
Yeah.
And they don't react well. Something goes wrong and people get hurt. Sometimes, unfortunately, people get killed. But we also have a lot of theft occurring routinely around businesses. And it's expensive. It costs a lot of money. Turn into insurance claims. You're just going to drive your insurance rates up. So I want to talk first, if we could, about the security of the business.
Right.
And I know there's an external and internal element to that, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to just kind of get out of the way for a second, and because I was intrigued when you explained that to me, and I want everybody out there to hear exactly what you told me about what, as a business owner, should we be looking at around our business.
Yeah, and great questions. You know, we typically look at the physical security aspects of our business. Do we have gates and doors and access control and alarm systems and other systems in place? But really, those are machines, and we need to look at the human and behavior, as you mentioned, the behavioral element of it. And you can have there's a pretty definitive separation between theft and employee violence. Those are usually not interrelated. So I'll just touch on the violence aspects, and also along with that, as business owners, we typically look at within the four walls of our business. And we really can't do that because it's quite often there are external factors that cause people to be violent within the business. Sure, it may be a termination issue, it may be an employee grievance issue, but there's other pressures that build up outside of the workplace that we need to consider. And then also those acts of violence that occur to employees in transitional spaces as they're coming and going from business. And I'll just give a brief example of that. In the healthcare world, we have hospitals and we have nurses that are primarily female that are working in those hospitals, and they work interesting hours. It's not your typical 9-to-5 job, and quite often the hospitals will have employee parking some distance away from the actual facility. And the further away you go from the secure confines of that building, where you have security teams and you have access control and all that, those controls begin to diminish. And frankly, the focus on safety diminishes, and it's transitioned over to the employee. However, it's still the employer's responsibility to have, again, gates and proper lighting, call boxes, if those are applicable, but giving the employees the tools to be safe from within the four walls out to the parking lot and home, because if violence happens there, it still could be your liability.
It is, absolutely.
And regardless if it's not your liability, it's going to affect your ability to do business, because now you have employees that have rational fears, and they have legitimate fears, they have concerns, they may look someplace else for employment, or if they're injured in that transitional space, they can't come to work. And that's going to affect other employees as well.
Correct.
So it's a very complex issue, but a lot of it can be solved through, again, the physical aspects, physical controls, but also training.
Outstanding. So give me an idea. So if I have an office space, let's say it's 5,000 square feet of office space, and I've got a parking lot that, let's say it's 100 yards away from my facility, and the hours of darkness, and we don't have a lot of that in a business environment, but and in some of the construction offices out there, especially, and like you talked about the healthcare facilities,
remote.
you never know. You could be working in transitioning between workplace and parking areas completely in darkness.
Yeah.
So if somebody was to say, hey, Dave, I want an assessment done. I want you to come in and take a look at my operations, my facility, and my parking areas. And, how long does that typically take? How much time am I going to have to invest in that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. For the physical aspects, that's pretty straightforward. We can just through brief discussion and visual observation, we can determine what those physical things that you have in place, and then make recommendations on these are things. And it's funny with physical security, we need to take into account that humans are typically lazy, so you need things that are passive and operate without any human intervention.
Okay.
Then you're going to have active measures as well. So surveying that for a 5,000 square foot facility, if it's a pretty simple facility, you're probably talking an hour or two. But really, again, the most important aspect of it is the human aspect and the behavioral component of that. And a lot of that can be done from peripheral observation. So just sitting and watching how employees interact with visitors and guests, and as they move through those transitional spaces to parking lots, what does their behavior look like? And really, there's not a lot of official interaction between the employer and me doing that security and assessment, because it's observational. That we document that and say, this is what we're seeing, these are the behaviors we're seeing, these are things that we can do, and you can help your employees be safer in the workplace, but they're going to take that home, and they're going to take that to their families. And again, they are tools that you can use in your everyday life, which they affect your ability to do work, and that personal time as well.
So I want to close this segment with a question that I have personally. So we have a lot of policies. Everybody out there that does business with PRM, we write a lot of policies. We have safety policy, we have safety training, we have employment practices, things of that nature. We have what we call active shooter policies that we have delivered to a lot of our clients. But one of the things that we always talk about as a safety element is that policy is only as good as the implementation. You have to have successful implementation for it to have an effect. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it's got to be the same thing when it comes to this area of our business practice. We got to have implementation. So how do we get that?
Yeah, and that's really the hard part, because it brings in the human component. And it's interesting because we all have a plan, right? Mm-hmm. We have a plan at home. This is what we would do if I had an uninvited guest to my home. I'm going to have a plan and all this. But the problem is, most people are basing their plan upon information, things that they believe that are not necessarily based on fact. It's just these random beliefs that we've gathered over time. And then the worst part is, we've never tested those. We've never stress tested them. And unless we can actually, and it's more than just doing a fire drill or an active shooter drill, but we need to still test those to see if they really work for your culture, your business culture, for the style of your business, because everyone's different. There's no cookie cutter. Okay, you need to follow this plan and you'll all be safe. It doesn't work that way. It's how do you guys operate? What's your, what's the vibe at the business? And then you can incorporate from there. So it has to be a very personal, tailored solution or recommendation to that particular business.
Outstanding. Well, obviously we're running short on time. We need to get off the air here. So one, I want you to stay tuned and keep watching, because we recently had Dave do some training with some of our team members here at PRM, and we did it for a reason, and we're going to get into that in the next segment that we talk about. But I'll tell you this, the reports that I got back from that training were off the charts. Everybody that participated in it was just amazed at what they learned. Most of the people that thought they really knew everything, they were like, wow, I learned something I had no idea that is going to impact my life. It's going to help us out. So if you want information on how to get the training and get the assessments, I encourage you to do it. Reach out to us here at Premier Risk Management. You know how to get a hold of us. We've got our contact information up at the beginning and end of this video. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you, and look for Dave and I to come back again soon, and we're going to have more for you to check out. Goodbye, everybody.